Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with our weekly recap of all things Injustice. This is for the week of September 19th, 2024. The current character challenge is Injustice to Aquaman. That is a 1 week repeat. The required characters for that are Red Sun, anything. Red Sun as a category, Arkham characters, and a Batman. And so Red Suns can be found as challenge golds or pack random drops, and Arkham and Batman characters can both be found as gold tier characters.
And I think specifically the gold pack random drop, right? Because they used to be able to get the Red Sun Superman, Wonder Woman, or Solomon Grundy. I was going to say Gollum and Grundy.
Yeah.
Solomon Grundy for the Red Sun characters,
yeah. His passive is Atlantean Tactics, which is when Aquaman does any special, he rinses any damage over time off him and puts it on his opponent with the effect doubled. He's got 1,400 attack and 1,400 health. He was last available in March of 2020, and we last reviewed him in 2023, right, towards the end of December.
Yeah. So he's got among the highest combined stats of any gold. And if you really want to be nitpicky, which we always do, about his passive, it gives his attack 2 abilities. The first is rinsing damage over time, which by itself would be pretty good. Second is he can apply it to his opponent with the effect doubled.
Yeah.
Rinsing damage over time, I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. When you're facing not just damage over time characters in general, but the best one, Arkham Knight Catwoman, wow. Like normally, not only does she do a huge amount of damage over time, but you can't do anything about it except for him. He overrides her, basically his passive does. So aside from not letting her hit you with her special, Injustice 2 Aquaman's passive is really the only counter against it.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. Sorry. Black Knight Flash is a counter against it. But I mean, the kicker is that you can apply it to them twice as hard. So we have footage in one of our older videos, and I'll be darned if I can't find it anywhere. I can't remember which video it was on, but there's a short sequence where our Injustice 2 Aquaman is facing the opponent's Injustice 2 Aquaman. And from what I remember, so we were separated. They had at least a bar and almost a second bar of power.
Yeah.
And because of the distance, they did a special 2 to give us bleed damage over time. We had power to rinse and reverse it, doubled. And so that last hit gave them their second power bar. Mm-hmm. So they did a special 1 back at us to rinse it off them and double it once more. And then they tagged out, and their Injustice 2 Superman tagged in, and he had a shield.
Yeah.
I was desperate to get rid of it because we were losing health at basically 4 times the normal rate of the special 1 damage over time. We did an immediate special 1, and he blocked.
Yeah.
It was wild because he didn't have to, right? Like if he hadn't blocked, his passive would have kicked in. Yeah. Nothing would have happened.
But then his health was gone just like instantly.
Pretty much. It just bled out like nothing. So it was wild. I mean, at that point, that was a time when Injustice 2 Superman had the biggest amount of health, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got the boost from his passive, and he just had really high stats. Mm-hmm. So the main problem with Injustice 2 Aquaman's passive is that it's only useful against a small number of cases where you take damage over time, which itself is a small subset of teams that do damage over time.
Yeah, because even for a team that does damage over time, there's a decent chance that in a fight that it's never really going to come up in a way that you care about.
Right. So you have to rely on something besides his passive. It's neat when it's useful, but a lot of times it's not. So thankfully, he's overall pretty good. We've given him Quake Engine because that plays into his damage over time. He's our specialist on this team, so he's doing a lot of extra damage. We needed someone to strip gears, so because when we face Astro Harness actually does a pretty good job of stopping damage over time for a bit, so it wipes out some of the time that it would have been going. So stripping gears is great, which is why we've got Red Lantern Hal Jordan, because he's got all his power and we tag him in if we need him. Now he's got Injustice 2 Aquaman, I should say, has multi-hit special 2. Each of the 4 hits seems to do a decent amount of damage. None is really out of line with the others. One thing to keep in mind is the second hit is less ranged than the first, or maybe the first hit shoves the opponent back enough that if you're not really close, the second hit will miss.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which one it is. I just know that there's a decent chance, even if the first one hits, you'll miss the second one if you've got a bit of separation. Now, the good news is he's viable as a Special 1 specialist because of how good stacked bleeds work, right, with the extra damage. Because each bleed boosts damage taken by the opponent, including damage over time by 20%. Stacking damage over time over and over again can bleed out almost anybody. And the only thing slowing you down are revives and invulnerabilities.
Yeah. So there we go. We're 21 weeks into sort of the new cycle with characters coming back. There are 12 more missing challenge characters. We don't really... So we can expect what we're going to see next week, which is Luchador Bane.
Right, because it's been the old pattern alternating with reinserting one of the missing challenge characters.
But then after that, we have no real evidence. All the ways that we were predicting before don't make sense anymore. So we'll just have to be, we'll see it fresh with you. We'll be excited and interested.
So the last clue we'd use was somebody who'd had a challenge sometime more recently than 2017 or 2016.
Yeah, because that seemed to be the pattern. But there's none of those left.
They're all gone. Yeah. Now it's a combination of characters that were either before 2017 or just have never had a challenge in Android.
Yeah. So there we go.
Wild.
Moving on to multiplayer rewards. This week's reward is Aries. His passive is To the Death, which is when Aries performs the Godsmack special, which is his special 2. It shocks opponents, causing them to lose the ability to block for a limited time. He's got 1,200 attack and 900 health, sort of stacked up how we like it with an attack-heavy build. He's last available on the 15th of February, 2024. Nothing missing from the multiplayer reward cycle, and no upset with that. It's been going on for a long time, so we expect Master's Death Cart to be there next week.
Right. So for people who are paying attention, it seems like his stats are pretty low. And they are for a multiplayer card. But they're weighted towards the damage side, which is what we like. And along with Cassandra Came Back Girl, Aries was one of the first 2 multiplayer exclusive. And that's part of the reason why his stats seem low now, because they weren't that low then. His health was lower than some, but his attack made up for it. His passive is interesting. To the Death. When Aries performs a Godsmack special, it shocks opponents, causing them to lose the ability to block for a limited time. So the Godsmack itself is also unblockable.
Yeah.
But it's not reduced in damage despite that status effect.
Yeah, because it's when you click the button, not when the hit lands, that the unblockable triggers, which is nice.
So compare that to Regime Superman, who has an unblockable special 2, but the damage is halved for what it should be because it's a status effect.
Which at that point, you almost would just rather it not be unblockable.
Yeah. But if you do block when Aries does the special 2 on you, it has a lower chance of being a critical hit. So there's at least a possibility it won't do enough damage to knock you out. If it crits, I mean, you're out. Another danger is that for you as Aries, is that if the opponent has blocking gear that reflects damage, like for example, Charge Disc, is that you could lose a lot of health even if Godsmack breaks the block.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to watch out for. So it's still worthwhile trying to time it so it's not blocked, but it'll still hit. It's just whether they have something extra to thwart you with.
Yeah.
Second part of his passive makes him a perfect teammate for Batgirl, as you can see in the numerous videos we've done with Aries. She gives him... That's not really the second part. It's our second sort of aspect of it, because the first part is that his special 2 is unblockable. And the second part, to me, is what's actually stated is that they lose the ability to block for a while after you do your special 2.
Yeah.
So Batgirl first gives him a second bar of power if he needs it. And if his special 2 doesn't knock someone out, she can tag in for an unblockable Cloak of Destiny and League of Assassin's Knives. Special 1 nuke does a ton of damage and splash damage.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of our older videos, when we first had him, he used to be amazing. He was great for super fast multiplayer fights, but the main counter against him is a revive. And there's just been, since he was introduced, there's been more characters that have a revive.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, 1 revive, say from 4th World Gears, wasn't a problem because Batgirl Special 1 was enough for the rest of the team. Now that there are so many more common revive possibilities, the Blackest Night Hawkgirl team is the worst. Necron Scythe, right?
Mm.
He's not nearly as fast as he used to be. And because there's only the 2 gears that give power on tag-in, 10-2 Total Master's Death Card, at least to the extent that we need it, right, for doing an instant special 2, you can either give him both, so that if someone survives the first tag-in and Godsmack, he can try again with his next tag in. Or you can give him Master's Death card, or give his Master's Death card to Batgirl to help him when he doesn't KO somebody.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do both, right? If you're giving that Master's Death card is either his or somewhere else, but you can't sort of leverage and get the benefit of both strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So that limitation means that you can't completely motor through against a team that has a bunch of revives. So it still slows you down a bunch.
Yeah.
Hawkgirl is our tank, and we keep her in first slot so that if we needed to, Red Lantern Hal Jordan has Astro Harness, and he's our gear stripper, so the timing of the first invulnerability of Astro Harness is perfect, where you do a special one as soon as you come in. It triggers, it might shatter gear, it triggers Enchantress Companion Gear, Skulls flying in, and while he's still invulnerable, he builds up this first bar of power again, and then he can do another one that strips all the gears off the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so if the opponent has a revive, instead of tagging in and dropping a Godsmack bomb, you tag an Aries, only use 1 bar of power, tag Batgirl back in for a special one, and if that doesn't get us to our first revive, we just repeat with Aries doing a special one, and then Batgirl again until we can use a Godsmack and now know that it will knock out the opponent. Mm-hmm. I guess it's weird. I was thinking, I forgot that our special specialist right now is Injustice 2 Aquaman in the footage that you're watching, but this strategy works just as well with the team that you're seeing if you swap out Aries for Injustice 2 Aquaman, although usually we like to use Aries with Batgirl.
Yeah.
What else? The other counter against Aries is who's, his main feature and what we've just really been talking about and focusing on is Godsmack repeatedly, because Tintu Totem gives full power back if you knock out your opponent, is you have an entry hazard against him. Like Gaslight Batman, which prevents Master's Death card from giving him the second bar of power immediately, or Arkham Knight Harley Quinn, who triggers her passive so you can't do a special 2 immediately. You're a little bit vulnerable, you got to block, and it gives the opponent a chance to really hurt you. And that's where your low health ends up being sort of a bit of a liability. And I should quick shout out to Nathan Hayward, one of our viewers, who'd mentioned that they liked how we talked about Arkham Knight Harley Quinn and Gaslight Batman as entry hazards.
That's a Pokemon term.
Yeah.
Moving on to the store, we have the Blackest Night Martian Manhunter Challenge Pack for 200,000 power credits. That gives you a 6.16% chance instead of the regular 2.86% chance of Blackest Night Martian Manhunter in the normal challenge packs. And we've done the math. It is not worth it unless you sell back basically every other character. It's also not a corroborating clue to next week's challenge.
So it's interesting because I think he was just recently a challenge character in February, and it's still too early. Because if this turns out to be an indication of who the next challenge character is, we're in a little bit of trouble, because it means that whatever cycle they've created, it's missing stuff. Like it's repeating stuff before they get through all the different characters.
We also have the Sorcery Pack 1 for $24.99 Canadian. That comes with Zatanna, Raven, and Kondak Black Adam, who are all challenge golds. We have the Character Bundle Lantern Elite that's in for its second week, and I think that's everything of note currently in the store. Anything
new, at least.
Yeah.
Phantom Zone is still done. I think this the second week we've been off, so maybe it's coming back next week if the regular routine is up for grabs. So, Fight 62 still broken. Last weekend's breakthrough for golds was, as expected, Sinestro, Green Arrow, and Scorpion. Coming weekends is probably going to be Joker, Nightwing, and Darkseid. Link in the description to a thread in the Injustice Mobile subreddit from Devlin16 that goes over the complete breakthrough cycle.
Mm-hmm. As far as current glitches go, we do go into more detail every time something significant changes, which did not happen this week. Doesn't happen most weeks. But even if nothing changes, we do a slightly more detailed review once a month on the first week of every month. That's most recently on the 4th of September 2024 for this month, and coming up in a couple weeks now.
Yeah, and your other option besides going to that video is that you can see a video tutorial for every working glitch in our playlist, Current Working Glitches, linked in the description of this video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and important to note, the Challenge Reset glitch has been tested and confirmed on this week's Injustice 2 Aquaman challenge. That is still up and running. And to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to all of our lovely patrons on Patreon. That is Michael Devries, Irvin, Ruiz, Hoshi127, and Nora Klimek supporting us on the credited level. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Komoda.